Okay guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. Hey, guess what? I'm back. This is video 2. The first one is uploading right now. Well, actually, it's not uploading. It's already uploaded. Now it's processing. So it should be available shortly. But in the meantime, while it's doing its thing, I'm going to do my thing and bring you another video. All right. Now, I'm going to just pick up from where I left off in the last video because there's more stuff to get to, and I'd like to get to it. And then and that's a big if I still have energy after that, I'm going to get us caught up on Q. Well, at least until today. Caught up on all the posts up till today. All right. So let's take a look at this. Here is more news. All right, Office Depot plans store closures. 13,100 jobs cut by 2023. That's not good news. And I don't know how they can close so many stores. I'm not sure exactly how many stores are closing, but 13,100 jobs being lost is a lot. And so anyway, I love Office Depot because there's so many things that you can get there that you can't find anywhere else. U.S. office supply retailer Office Depot said on Thursday it plans to cut about 13,100 jobs and close certain retail stores by the end of 2023 in a bid to curb costs and focus on its IT services business units. The company expects the restructuring to yield up to $860 million in net savings by 2023 and incur charges of up to $543 million. Office Depot said the charges include costs related to potential retail store and distribution facility closures and headcount reductions. The company said it is still evaluating the number of potential store closures. Earlier this month, the retailer withdrew its 2020 guidance, citing global business disruption and uncertainty caused by COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I wonder how many more are going to be following suit, because these stores, you know, with being shut down, they can't operate. How can they operate? They're paying rent on huge buildings. They still have to pay electricity to keep the lights on and everything functioning, and yet they're not bringing in money. It's not good because it translates into lost jobs. We don't need any lost jobs. I think it's going to be bad enough when everything shakes out from this whole calamity that we've been involved in. So anyway, there's that. And whoops, don't want to go there. Hang on, where was I? Right here. All right, and let's look at this. All right, CV China leaked database could expose real COVID-19 numbers. A treasure trove of raw data said to be from 230 different Chinese cities has been leaked, and it tells a very damning story. I'm sure it does. Is Beijing lying in its COVID-19 reporting? Controversy swarms around its draconian censorship of the pandemic, but a massive new data leak may contain the keys to the truth. U.S. Global Affairs magazine Foreign Policy has obtained a treasure trove of raw data assembled by China's military-run National University of Defense Technology. It purports to be an assembly of data collected by various government sources spanning 230 cities. While not complete, it is by far the most comprehensive look at the raw data Beijing has been basing its reporting on. It can serve as a valuable trove of information for epidemiologists and public health experts around the globe, a dataset that Beijing has almost certainly not shared with the U.S. officials or doctors, the Foreign Policy article states. It's not a complete data set, but it tracks some 640,000 COVID-19 cases across the country between early February and late April. It records the map coordinates of hospitals, apartment blocks, hotels, supermarkets, restaurants, schools, and places of worship. The number of cases linked to each location is listed, as are the numbers of those who had recovered and those who had died. Foreign Policy and co-publisher 100 Reporters has not yet made the leaked database publicly available. Instead, it says that it is exploring ways to make the data available for researchers studying the spread of CV. As China was the first nation to experience a significant COVID-19 outbreak, it had an uphill task in organizing the assembly of reliable data. But at the same time, the Chinese Communist Party has long since imposed stringent surveillance and data collection practices over its enormous population, not to mention institutionalized censorship. All these aspects immediately flagged fears as the world anxiously watched developments. Unlike in other countries, China's outbreak peaked before rigorous testing methods were widely available, and the Communist Party often manipulates data for political purposes, the article reads. Documentation has since revealed Beijing kept news of the new CV secret from its people and the world for 6 crucial days in January. Since then, the CCP has continued to strictly limit the amount and type of pandemic information it releases, and some of that data has raised eyebrows. First, the early numbers in particular appear to track textbook projection charts unusually accurately. Typically, many outlier figures fall outside the average range, but epidemiologists noted Beijing's numbers were strangely polished. Then came the sudden revision of CV deaths in April. Wuhan revised the number of CV deaths from 2,579 to 3,869, an increase of exactly 50%. Foreign Policy notes, and a 15-page international intelligence dossier given to the Daily Telegraph accuses Beijing of a massive cover-up. China deliberately suppressed or destroyed evidence of the CV outbreak in an assault on international transparency that cost tens of thousands of lives. The Daily Telegraph reports the Five Eyes Alliance, Australia, Canada, the US, UK, and New Zealand dossier as concluding. It states that to the endangerment of other countries, the Chinese government covered up news of the virus by silencing or disappearing doctors who spoke out, destroying evidence of it in laboratories, and refusing to provide live samples to international scientists who were working on a vaccine. Australia is experiencing a fierce backlash from China for demanding an international inquiry into the origins of the COVID-19 virus and how it spread. It's standard practice. It's been applied to the emergence of most pandemic threats in recent decades. But now Beijing has gone so far as to mobilize Australian billionaires to push back at Prime Minister Scott Morrison's proposal. Foreign Minister Marise Payne warned against any further attempts at economic coercion, but China has since moved to put bans on Australian meat and barley producers. Why is Beijing displaying such intense sensitivity? Possibly because of bureaucratic errors, Foreign Policy notes, and possibly because Beijing fears that outside researchers will learn of its extensive cover-up, destroying the narrative that an authoritarian nation like China is better equipped to protect its people against a pandemic. It's not a new observation. In essence, the party wants to make the best out of a terrible situation and spin the story in favor of the party by deflecting blame, sowing doubts on its culpability, whipping up nationalism, and highlighting the superiority of the Chinese party state, Chinese Policy Center Director Adam Ni said earlier this year. But the need to learn from the outbreak to prevent a repeat performance in the future trumps any need for political spin, says Australian think tank chief Michael Fullilove. That's an interesting last name. Fullilove. Australia is right to propose an impartial, independent inquiry, and in the long run, it is China's interest to be able to throw light on the origins and spread of the virus. The Lowy, Institute Executive Director, says the battle to control public perceptions about COVID-19 pandemic is not limited to China. In the United States, doctors who criticized the lack of medical equipment were sacked. In Russia, several mysteriously fell from hospital upper floor windows. Several large U.S. health providers formally warned their staff that speaking to the media would result in immediate dismissal, and the political backlash against crucial experts such as immunologist Professor Anthony Fauci and health official Dr. Deborah Birx has been brutal. The numbers are coming down very rapidly all throughout the country, by the way, President Trump insisted yesterday, but the numbers don't appear to support him. Well, I don't believe that, because I believe that they are using tests that give false positives. Coronavirus task force figures, which are not intended to be made public, instead revealed a significant surge in several major cities and rural regions as the number of cases began to come down in hotspots such as New York. COVID-19 is continuing its march into the American heartland. That's prime Trump supporter territory, and the U.S. presidential election is scheduled for November. Now, obviously, this is written being biased against Trump, absolutely, and all they need to do is use the drug, and the pandemic would be over. Yeah. All right. Let's go back. And my gosh, what are those cats doing? They wait every night. They wait until I'm recording, and then they run around and they do stuff so that after I'm finished recording, it's always a surprise. Yeah, what a wonderful surprise. All right, let's look at this now, because we can, and we will, and here we go. All right. Acting DNI Rick Grenell announces the FBI will no longer be giving intelligence-based threat briefings to candidates. FBI frozen out. Acting Director of National Intelligence Richard Grenell on Friday announced major changes to election security briefings. Grenell announced the U.S. intel community will lead all intelligence-based threat briefings to candidates, campaigns, and political organizations. The FBI was frozen out. This is huge. Or, as President Trump would say, huge. Yeah. So, the FBI cannot be trusted after what they did to President Trump during the 2016 election and beyond. Director Christopher Wray has done nothing to cut the cancer out and rebuild the public's trust in the FBI. Today, the ODNI announced that the U.S. intelligence community will lead all intelligence-based threat briefings to candidates, campaigns, and political organizations under the U.S. government's notification framework. Bill Avenina, the director of the National Counterintelligence and Security Center, will serve as the IC's leader to this critical effort. U.S. elections are the foundation of our nation's democracy. We are committed to supporting this administration's whole-of-government effort to secure the 2020 election, said Avenina. The change represents an important improvement and simplification to the threat notification process. The IC will continue to work in partnership with FBI and DHS to identify and integrate threat information, and Avenina and the elections team will act swiftly to deliver the timely and thorough assessments to those affected by potential malicious influence. And Jack Prosobic says, breaking, DNI is Richard Grenell is placing election security candidate briefings with the IC where it belongs and out of the realm of federal law enforcement. And this is good news, very good news. So that is that. I think everybody needs to know that. And let's go back, because there's more. No, really, there is. Let's look at this. I can't remember what this is, but it must be good. Wouldn't bring you garbage now. Oh, yes, this is very, very interesting. According to the BBC News, and this is from today, so it's hot and fresh, Du Wei, Chinese ambassador to Israel, found dead at home. Well. And what's that about? China's ambassador to Israel, Du Wei, has been found dead in his apartment north of Tel Aviv. An Israel official told BBC News. An Israeli official told BBC News. The official said Israeli police had launched an investigation, but initial findings suggested no foul play. Mr. Du, 57, was appointed ambassador in February, having previously served as an envoy to Ukraine. The ambassador was married and had a son, but his family had to join him in Israel. He was living in Herzliya, some 10 kilometers north of Tel Aviv. So I don't know. I don't know. I know, when you believe in conspiracy theories, sometimes, everything looks like a conspiracy. This certainly does, but who knows? Who knows? An Israeli police spokesman told Reuters news agency, as part of our regular procedures, police units are at the scene. Israeli Channel 12 TV quoting unnamed medical sources, said initial indications were that Mr. Du had died in his sleep of natural causes. Well, maybe not. They said initial indications, which means they haven't done an autopsy. There was no immediate comment on Mr. Du's death from Chinese officials. In a message published on the embassy website just after his appointment as ambassador, Mr. Du praised the relations between the second largest economy in the world and Israel, the startup nation. When he arrived in Israel on the 15th of February, Mr. Du had immediately to self-isolate for 2 weeks because of CV restrictions. In an interview with Israeli newspaper Makor Rishon last month, Mr. Du said China was being made the world's scapegoat. In history, more than once, a certain group of people was accused of spreading pandemics, he said. This is despicable and should be condemned. The disease is an enemy of the entire humankind, and the world should fight it together. On Friday, his embassy made a scathing attack on U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who had criticized China's handling of the CV pandemic on a visit to Israel. In a response published in the Jerusalem Post, the embassy condemned Mr. Pompeo's absurd comments, denying that China has ever covered up the crisis. Yeah, well, I don't know. I certainly don't believe that. I don't believe, I mean, we know where it came from, but I guess we'll have to see what they conclude caused his death, because he looks like a very young and healthy man, and that's a little bit unusual to just die in your sleep. Just saying. I don't know anybody that's young that has just died in their sleep. I'm sure there's some, but can't be too many. All right, let's go on. And I can't remember what this is, but hey, let's check it out. We can do it together.
Guidance of...
Oh, yes. This, inside the Democrats' $3 trillion coronavirus relief bill. Well prepared to hear the ridiculous. But then what would you expect? Now, this is 10 minutes long. I'm not playing that. My gosh, is that really what
guidance
I know?
Of the health?
What is this? This is what I wanted. Broward County administrator discussing removing people from family homes for COVID-19 quarantines. So let's listen to this. This is what I wanted. The other didn't look familiar. Okay.
So tracing is something that would have to be under the guidance of the health department, as sensitive public health information and the like. So they would coordinate it under a public health initiative. I'm expecting a proposal from Dr. Thatchy. It may be in my office now, but sometime this week that would substantially increase not only the tracing, but more testing and case management and isolation for, when we have to go into some of these ALFs and move people out or go into family homes, like in some of these, when we're going into some of these homes and we have to separate an individual, to isolate them, they need, we need to make sure that they get care, that they have food, that they have support to be isolated from their home or their family for that 14-day period. So they're expecting a major proposal to expand what is in place now that we have, in terms of what she has, what the state has proffered, and they've given us a lot of resources, but we're still 2 million people, so we're going to step it up even more because of our concern about not backsliding.
Yeah.
So tracing,
I don't know about you, but that makes my skin crawl. The thought of somebody coming into my home. Now, I live alone, so it's not like they'd be separating me from anyone. I would likely just be quarantined here. But if you have a family and one of you tests positive, it's frightening to think that they can just come into your home and remove you. Now, I know you don't want to give it to the rest of your family members, but I don't know. It's too much. This is just way too much for something that has a survivability of over 99%. It's crazy. I really do think it's crazy. But anyway, let's go back and see what other information we can get into here. And let's look at this. Can't remember what this is, but let's assume it's something good. Oh, yes. Democrats pushed the $3 trillion coronavirus bill through the House. Well, yeah, it went through the House, but good luck getting it passed in the Senate. Yeah, good luck with that. Not going to happen, I can assure you that. Democrats have powered a massive $3 trillion coronavirus relief bill through the House, an election year measure designed to brace a U.S. economy in a free fall and healthcare system struggling to obtain a pandemic still pummeling the country. Friday's 208 to 199 vote, with all but one Republican opposed, advances what boils down to a campaign season display of Democratic economic and healthcare priorities. It has no chance of becoming law as written, but will likely spark difficult negotiations with the White House and Senate Republicans. Any product would likely be the major COVID-19 response bill before November presidential and congressional any product would probably be the last major COVID-19 response bill before November's presidential and congressional elections. The enormous Democrat measure would cost more than the prior four coronavirus bills combined. It would deliver almost $1 trillion for state and local governments, another round of 1,200 direct payments to individuals, and help for the unemployed, renters and homeowners, college debt holders, and the struggling postal service. Now, not to act now is not only irresponsible in a humanitarian way, it is irresponsible because it's only going to cost more, warned House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Why does anybody listen to her? Really? More in terms of lives, livelihood, cost to budget, and cost to our democracy, like she cares. She doesn't. Republicans mocked the bill as a bloated Democrat wish list. That's exactly what it is. A bloated Democrat wish list that was dead on arrival in the GOP-led Senate, and for good measure faced a White House veto threat. Party leaders say they want to assess how $3 trillion approved earlier is working and see if some states' partial business reopenings would spark an economic revival that would ease the need for more safety net programs. Republicans are also sorting through internal divisions and awaiting stronger signals from President Donald Trump about what he will support. Phase 4 is going to happen, Trump told supporters in the Oval Office using Washington inside speak insider speak for the measure, but it's going to happen in a much better way for the American people. Trump and top Republicans like Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell are insisting the next measure should protect reopening businesses from liability lawsuits. The president is also demanding a cut to payroll taxes, but GOP leaders are not yet on board. The day-long debate painted a Capitol scene that's become common in the era of coronavirus, even as it remains disconcerting. The sparsely populated House floor was dotted with lawmakers and aides wearing protective masks and even gloves, though some Republicans lacked them. Many members looked shaggier and sported beards they had not worn weeks ago. Roll call votes lasted for over an hour each because lawmakers were voting in small groups to limit crowding. To enhance the bill's political impact, Democrats named their measure the HEROES Act for the payments it would provide frontline emergency workers. With more than 86,000 Americans dead, oh gosh, cat fight. Oh, sorry, I'm watching the cats fight and it's a little nasty. Sammy? Sammy? I may have to intervene, so. All right. Okay, so the day-long debate painted a Capitol scene. Okay, where was I? All right. With more than 86,000 Americans dead, 1.4 million confirmed infections, and 36 million filing unemployment claims in a frozen economy, Democrats saw GOP opposition as an easy campaign target. Are you kidding me? Said Representative Tim Ryan of Republican assertions that it's time to stop spending more money. Where do you guys live? Food lines at our food banks around the block. In the United States of America, Republicans saw the bill as a Democrat political blunder. They said overly generous unemployment benefits discouraged people from returning to work and attacked language helping immigrants in the U.S. illegally get federal benefits. They also singled out provisions helping states set up voting by mail and easing the marijuana industry's access to banks. It may help the cannabis industry, but it won't help Main Street, said House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. So, listen to that. Isn't that pathetic? It is pathetic. Listen, I am going to just pause this for a second and tend to my kitties. I will be back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Now I'm gonna... There we go. There we go. I think I'm all back now. I had to see to the kitties because it sounded like they were killing one another. And also, while I was gone, I had another bite of chocolate cake, the same chocolate cake I've been eating for the past 4 days. It's only one piece of chocolate cake, but I've been eating it for 4 days because I only take one bite at a time. Yeah. Not a big chocolate eater, apparently. So I don't know how much longer the cake will last. Probably at this rate, another 4 days. All right. So let's, I guess we finished the last thing. So let's look at this. No, really, let's. Okay. This U.S. state has already established legal means for mandatory vaccine or mandatory vaccinations. And this is not good news to anybody. All right. Says, while the U.S. government and global health authorities debate how quickly they can roll out contact tracing, surveillance programs, and fast-track vaccines, Americans are left wondering and debating over whether the vaccinations program for COVID-19 might end up being mandatory. I know I've been wondering that, and everybody says, oh, no, Donald Trump wouldn't do that. Well, let's hope not. Let's hope not. But I don't know. And maybe you guys in the States will end up being lucky. I mean, I am not in the States right now. I'm in Canada, so I am a little bit worried. I'm a lot worried because it's a very socialistic country here. And that's why I want to get back to the States. All right. Anyway, It is true that Donald Trump has acknowledged that we are looking for a full vaccine for everyone who wants to get it. Not everyone wants to get it. However, it's still uncertain whether the Trump administration will side with civil liberties and informed consent when it comes to the COVID-19 vaccine. What is certain at this point is that at least one state in the United States of America has already implemented measures which will allow for forced or mandatory vaccinations once a COVID-19 vaccine is developed. The Last American Vagabond was recently sent the meme below, which has been circulating the internet in recent days. The image claims that someone's husband recently flew from Louisiana to Florida, where he was handed a mandatory quarantine form to fill out. According to the post, the man was essentially forced to sign if he wanted to exit the plane. The image then shows a screenshot of a document which states that individuals who violate the quarantine will be subject to a $500 fine or a 60-day jail sentence. Furthermore, the meme states that the state health officer and surgeon general can order any individual to be examined, tested, vaccinated, treated, isolated, or quarantined for COVID-19. All right. Now, this is it. It says, my husband flew from Louisiana to Florida for work today. Without notice, he was not told any of this getting on the airplane, and once he landed, an employee came in and made everyone sign it or they could not leave the plane. So he was basically forced to sign. Fine, up to $500 or 60 days of imprisonment. Did you see the small paragraph below? The state health officer and surgeon general can order any individual to be examined, tested, vaccinated, treated, isolated, or quarantined. You probably already saw this, but I figured seeing the real paper might be of interest to you. And this is apparently the paper that he was supposed to sign. And let me see, I can't make this any bigger. But this is it. And let's go back here. All right, we decided to fact check this meme to see if there was truth to the claim, and unfortunately the document is, in fact, a Florida state document. Here's what we found. The document is called COVID-19 Department of Health Mandatory Self-Isolation Airport Travel and can be found on the official website of the Florida Airports Council. The form asks travelers to put their home address, a detailed description of the trip, and the names and birth dates to family members who traveled with the person filling out the form. At the bottom of the form, it states the following. I understand that any individual in my family who violates the self-isolation or self-quarantine by failing to remain within the confines of the address I provided for my stay in Florida for the mandatory length of time can be subject to prosecution under Section 252.50 or 3.1.00315(6) Florida statutes, which, if convicted, is punishable up to 60 days imprisonment, a fine not more than $500, or both. Additionally, it says, pursuant to Executive Order 20-80 and the Florida Department of Health Declaration of Public Health Emergency, the state health officer and surgeon general can order any individual to be examined, tested, vaccinated, treated, isolated, or quarantined for COVID-19. Any isolation or quarantine order issued pursuant to Section 318.00315 Florida statutes shall be enforceable by injunction filed in a Florida Circuit Court. Finally, passengers are reminded that failure to follow any isolation or quarantine order by the Florida Department of Health is a second-degree misdemeanor. Right there, in plain language, a Florida state document which is being handed out to individuals flying into Florida claims the Surgeon General can order any individual to be vaccinated. Where does the Surgeon General get this apparent authority? According to the document, the Executive Order 20-80 and the Florida Department of Health Declaration of a Public Health Emergency grant the legal authority to conduct such an action. However, a reading of EO 20-80 finds the word vaccine is not even mentioned once. Under Section 1D, it states the following. Pursuant to Section 381.00125 Florida statutes, it shall be the duty of every state and county official. It shall be the duty of every state and county attorney, sheriff, police officer, and other appropriate city and I'm sorry, I can't read anymore. What's happening to me? It shall be the duty of every state and county attorney, sheriff, police officer, and other appropriate city and county officials, upon request, assist the Department of Health in enforcing any isolation or quarantine or order of the Department of Health issued pursuant to this order. Notice the vague and broad or order of the Department of Health. Well, according to this executive order, it is the duty of every state, county, and local official to enforce any order given out by the DOH. This could easily be interpreted as legal justification for a vaccination order. When examining the Florida Department of Health declaration of a public health emergency, we see the following language. Section 6. In order to protect public health, the Florida Department of Health at such time, when necessary, may take actions to protect the public health pursuant to the authority of Section 381.00315 Florida statutes, including quarantine, isolation, and other interventions. What exact treatment fit under other interventions is anyone's guess. But once again, we see vague language that could be broadly interpreted to support orders for compulsory vaccination programs in response to COVID-19. The Florida DOH public health emergency was first declared on March 1st and the EO 20-80 on March 23rd. Both declarations are still in effect, meaning the language could be used at any point to institute forced vaccination programs. All U.S. states have declared various states of emergency and issued executive orders in reaction to COVID-19. It is likely other states have similar measures on the books. We would love to hear from our readers who may have seen similar language used. It is important to spread the information and inform Americans about the technocratic state and medical martial law that is unfolding. Get informed, educate others, and take action to slow the rollout of this pandemic nightmare. And it is a pandemic nightmare. Question everything, come to your own conclusions. And I think that is wonderful advice. Question everything, but don't let people tell you how to think or what to think. All right. That is actually quite alarming if you ask me. Very alarming. All right. Now, I really like this and I wanted to share this. Just so we're all clear, Obama, Benghazi scandal, Fast and Furious scandal, NSA domestic spying scandal, Hillary email scandal, extrajudicial drone strike killings, including American citizens, Obama health care plan, retention lie, Hillary Clinton investigation scandal, illegal Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac payments, ICE deportation interference scandal, Iran ransom payment scandal, IRS intimidation scandal, press surveillance scandal, illegal slush fund redirection scandal, organizing for action, funding of town hall disruptions, Hezbollah cocaine running scandal, ISIS funding scandal, foreign government destabilization scandals, Solyndra failure fiasco, Bradley Manning torture scandal, EPA thunderclap scandal, GSA scandal, Secret Service scandal, sabotage of coal industry, propaganda ban repeal, 100 million in arms sales to Saudis, secret kill list scandal, Monsanto Protection Act, highest U.S. poverty level in history, record food stamp usage, Chrysler forced resignation scandal, siding with a foreign nation, Mexico against American states, termination of NASA launch program. That's all under Obama. Under Trump, what do we have? No collusion. Yeah. And what is it they like to brag? You know, Obama and Biden. Oh yeah, ours was the only, we had no scandals. There were no scandals at all. Right. And people believe that. That's the crazy part. There's people who believe that. I don't know where they were for all 8 years that Obama was in office, but now they're like, no, they didn't, no scandal there. What were they doing for those 8 years? No, seriously. I don't know. All right. Now, let's go on. Here we go. Okay, Wall Street Journal. Adam Schiff knew all along there was no proof of Russia-Trump collusion. Well, well, well. Oh, Adam Schiff. Okay, an explosive report from the Wall Street Journal blasted Representative Adam Schiff Wednesday, accusing the top Democrat of knowing all along there was no proof the Trump campaign colluded with the Russian government. Americans expect that politicians will lie, but sometimes the examples are so brazen that they deserve special notice. Newly released congressional testimony shows that Adam Schiff spread falsehoods shamelessly about Russia and Donald Trump for 3 years, even as his own committee gathered contrary evidence, reports the Wall Street Journal. And Donald Trump here, newly released documents show Schiff knew all along there was no proof of Russia-Trump collusion. Wall Street Journal. The House Intelligence Committee last week released 57 transcripts of interviews it conducted in its investigation into Russia's meddling in the 2016 election, which never happened. The committee probe started in January 2017 under then-chair Devin Nunes and concluded in March 2018 with a report finding no evidence that the Trump campaign conspired with the Kremlin. Most of the transcripts were ready for release long ago, but Mr. Schiff oddly refused to release them after he became the chairman in 2019. He only released them last week when the White House threatened to do it first, adds the Wall Street Journal. From the Wall Street Journal, in December 2017, he told CNN that collusion was a fact. The Russians offered help. The campaign accepted help. The Russians gave help, and then President made full use of that help. In April 2018, Mr. Schiff released his response to Mr. Nunes' report, stating its findings of no collusion was unsupported by the facts and the investigative record. None of this was true, and Mr. Schiff knew it. In July 2017, here's what former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper told Mr. Schiff and his colleagues: "I never saw any direct empirical evidence that the Trump campaign or somebody in it was plotting, conspiring with the Russians to meddle with the election." 3 months later, former Obama Attorney General Loretta Lynch agreed that while she'd been seen concerning information, "I don't recall anything being briefed up to me." Former Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates concurred. Several weeks later, "We were at the fact-gathering stage here, not the conclusion stage." The same goes for the FBI agents who started the collusion probe in 2016. Most remarkable, former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe admitted the Bureau's reason for opening the case was nonsense. Asked in December 2017 why the FBI obtained a secret surveillance warrant on former Trump aide Carter Page rather than on George Papadopoulos, that's right, George Papadopoulos, whose casual conversation with a foreign diplomat was the catalyst for the probe, Mr. McCabe responded, "Papadopoulos' comment didn't particularly indicate that he was the person that was interacting with the Russians. No one else was either." So, yeah, this is crazy. Another Schiff show. Adam Schiff calls for congressional hearings into Trump's Iraq airstrike. Well, why wouldn't he? All right. Whatever. Schiff. Oh, he's going to be one that I'm going to be so glad to see go. Schiff, Pelosi, Maxine Waters. Oh my gosh, there's so many of them. I shouldn't even start naming them because we'd be here all night. Alrighty, let's go back now and let's look at this. J.T. Lewis says, Joe Biden, 45 years in office. Bernie Sanders, 35 years in office. Nancy Pelosi, 33 years in office. Chuck Schumer, 39 years in office. Donald Trump, 3 years in office. Donald Trump didn't create the problems America faces. He's just here to fix them. And that, my friends, is the truth. It is the truth. Now, there's one last thing that I want to show you guys, and really, I just kind of stumbled upon it, and I'm glad I did, because I'm sure a lot of you have heard of John Here to Help. He is an insider, and he does provide some very, very riveting information. Well, I came across this, and it is, he's writing this to Judge Sullivan, of course, the judge that has been trying to throw a monkey wrench into, the letting Flynn off, which he was ordered to do. But anyway, this is what John Here to Help has to say. Mr. Judge Sullivan, I had hoped all along that you would do the right thing, that you would realize that what you're trying to hide is known by people on both sides. I had hoped in knowing that you would consider the situation moot and do the right thing. I had hoped, no, okay, yeah, that's right. You did not. Instead, you turned to your friends for more political favors and cover. So maybe exposing some of those crimes will prompt you to recuse yourself. It's obvious you can't be relied upon to do your job impartially and dismiss all charges exonerating General Flynn. We have met. I have unfortunately worked with Elijah Cummings on more than one occasion. The latest was when he asked me to assess the viability of his wife's political campaign. The access granted for that proved very interesting. Quick question, Your Honor. Over the years, how many millions of dollars in government funds did yourself and your buddy Elijah Cummings siphon off of Howard University? I guess you were right when you said, quote, they don't need it. They never amount to anything. On a side note, I think it's very kind of you to help your good friend Cummings in his little multi-million-dollar insurance fraud scheme. Like he said, no one's ever going to get a police search warrant for federal judge's house. What better place to hide a bunch of stolen artwork? I especially like the two of you, you have in your private office at home. You don't have any intention of giving those back, do you? But I digress. Besides the money laundering and the insurance fraud for yourself and your friends, should we talk about the cases that you have corrupted for money or favors? I've compiled quite a list. Perhaps I should point out the non-politically advantageous cases, where you just stuck it to the defendant because you could, or because you didn't like them, or their race, or because you had fixed so many other cases, you had to make some of them look normal. Any comment, Judge? Because it's about to get worse. There was a secret deal in your courtroom, a deal threatening General Flynn's son. You can pretend it was a secret, but you knew about it the entire time. You colluded with the prosecutor continuously. But all that's very obvious now. An innocent man faced with evil against himself and his son. An honorable man, an intelligent man with integrity, a warrior, will stand in front of his son against any evil. An evil plan thought you knew of and allowed to happen. Then you pretended not to know anything about it. And when it finally did come out, you did not rebuke the prosecution for it. General Flynn fell on a sword for his son. You cannot ask for a greater love or respect. I know it well. I had to do it for my wife and my family. We just discussed a relationship between a father and his son, one of the strongest bonds in this world and beyond. I understand you're a father as well. Normally, I would not discuss children, but since your children figure so prominently in shaping your decisions on the bench, I will go ahead and include them here. You have 2 sons. Both of them violent, no good pieces of crap that Daddy has had to cover for their whole lives. One in particular, your namesake, that must be a particular thorn in your side. In 2012, he was arrested for the violent assault and rape of an underage girl. He beat and raped her for several hours at his home, and when he was finished with her, he left her laying on the floor while he went and watched TV. He didn't give her another thought until approximately an hour later when he went to use the bathroom and she was still laying in the same spot, unresponsive. Did he call an ambulance out of concern? No. He left the house and called you from his car. You wanted to know who it was. Obviously, this has happened before and you wanted to know how bad cleanup was going to be this time. This time, it was the daughter of a family friend, someone who owed you a lot, someone you had enriched. And abusing your authority as usual, you knew you could cover it up. Instead of calling 911 because of recordings, you instructed your son to call the local fire department directly. Real shame, they keep a recorded line as well. and once dispatched to your son's address, found the girl lying against the wall in the bedroom, still unresponsive. They got her to the hospital, saved her life. She was bleeding externally and internally. Another hour and she would not have made it, saving Daddy's little namesake a murder charge. But the ambulance company called the police, reported it. Oh, your son was arrested. There was no way out. The evidence was overwhelming. So you and Cummings and Rod took care of it. Lost in the system. No disposition. Still on the books, but never made it to court. Your son must be very lucky to have you as a father. The girl was not so lucky. That was in 2012. This is 2020. This summer she'll be old enough to take her first legal drink. I don't know what she'll celebrate if she does. Her life has been very difficult. Everything she's had to go through, including her own family, her father that you control, telling her to get over it. She has a lot to get over. At least she will never be burdened with a child like your buddy Obama says. No concessions for her. Too much damage for that. Yeah, she was left so damaged that she couldn't even bear a child. She can't bear a child now. But you managed to bury it. Fast forward a few more years, and the same son is picked up in a multi-state sting of online pedophiles. I'm sure all those pictures and videos he was trading, all those children, oh, I'm sure they were asking for it too. Back to your friends, Cummings, Catherine Pugh, Rod. Funny how your friends It's funny how all your friends are corrupt or convicted. With that previous charge still on the books, you really had to call in some favors to make this go away. Close to 900 people picked up. You managed to make that case disappear somewhere in between the state and federal level with some Rod Rosenstein help. There wouldn't want him to pay for the crimes he committed, would we? You owe so much to so many people, and they are really pulling your strings now, aren't they? You are unfit for the bench. You do not, and then it ends there. So this is very interesting, and this was a thread unroll by John Here to Help. He is on Twitter. If you go to Twitter, you can find him as John at John Here to Help. And so, yeah, and he is an insider. He definitely has information that is true and viable, and he's been correct in everything so far, so I tend to believe him. So isn't this interesting? And I wonder how this is going to shake out. Well, I can tell you, I'm going to keep following this, and I'm going to go back and read through all the threads that John has started, because he is a very, very good source of information. Now, I had forgotten about him, to tell you the truth, so I do want to go back and check out all his threads and see what other really interesting information that he has. So there's that, and I did want to make sure that I read that to you guys because I think it's important. Very, very important. And of course, remember Elijah Cummings when it was like an insurance fraud because there was, I think, did he claim that there was a fire at his house or something and that all his art was damaged? I can't remember now. Let me see here. Elijah Cummings, fire. Yeah, I think it was a house fire, if I'm not mistaken. Because, and there was all this art, priceless art there. Yeah, Elijah Cummings was at work specifically. Okay, when was this? This was 2015. No, it seems to be that it was a lot sooner than 2015. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to have to look into that too so that we know exactly what happened there. Okay, well, that is it for tonight. It is now 11:40. I really do want to get caught up on the Q posts, at least up until today, but I don't think I have it in me for another video. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this uploaded, and I'll go from there. If not, then I promise, well, I shouldn't promise because you never know these days, but if not, if I don't do another video tonight, then I will do my very, very best to catch us all the way up, including the post from today with Q, and along with any news that might be of interest to us. Okay, well, thank you guys so much. And again, I apologize for being off the last couple days. And I know you always say, stop apologizing. But I do, because, you know, I want to be, I don't know, I want to be consistent. And I do try to, when I am off, at least do a couple videos a day for a while to catch up. So anyway, I am really hoping that I will see you tomorrow. I have no reason why I shouldn't, because there's nothing on tomorrow. It's a holiday here in Canada. So I have nothing to do but post. And so there you go. And I'm sorry, I'm watching Sammy, who seems very, very fascinated with this microphone. Sammy, can you see him? I don't know if you can or not. Hang on here. Can you see him? Oh, he's just the corner of him there. Hang on. Look, what I'll do is this. Whoa, there we go. Oh, of course. Yeah, Sammy. Of course. As soon as I move the camera, then you take off. You're a shy little thing. He really isn't. Okay, well, we'll turn this back here, and I will say good night. You guys stay safe, stay well, stay blessed, and keep seeking truth, because deception bites. Good night, guys.